Hello and welcome. Tonight, Easter gift from the National Council of State to Nigerians as body approves conduct of national census between March and April 2023, the first in 16 years. National Assembly approves 4 trillion naira for subsidy payment in fulfillment of President's request for adjustments to the 2022 budget. All Progressives Congress governorship aspirant in Delta State, Senator Ovie Omoagege, publicly declares intention, says he's on a mission to rescue Delta.
And in international news from London, Ukraine claims it's hit Russia's flagship Black Sea cruiser with 2 missiles, causing extensive damage.
And on business news tonight, President Muhammadu Buhari approves reconstitution of Federal Mortgage Bank Board, appoints Haman Madu as new Chief Executive Officer.
On sports news tonight, Salisu Yusuf returns to the Super Eagles technical setup for the second time as the Nigeria Football Federation appoints coaches for the country's men's national teams.
And from Abuja, emotions run high as families of victims of Kaduna train attack demand government's quick intervention to free their loved ones after 17 days in captivity.
And after 16 years, Nigeria appears set to conduct another national population census following the approval today by the Council of State for the exercise to hold in March and April 2023. This is one of the 4 decisions made by the Council, as explained to State House correspondents after the meeting, which had in attendance all living past heads of state, both physical and virtual, or state governors and the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, among other top government officials. Proceedings started with the Council observing a minute's silence in honor of the former head of interim government, Chief Onne, who died earlier this year. Our State House correspondent, Kayla Megwa, reports.
This is the 4th time President Muhammadu Buhari is presiding over the Council of State meeting. And this meeting is coming at a time when security challenges are bedeviling the country as economic conditions worsen. After the meeting, journalists are briefed on the resolutions reached by Council. First, despite the high levels of insecurity, especially in remote parts of the country, and activities leading to the 2023 elections reaching top gear, a national census is built to hold between March and April of 2023.
Normally, we give about 6 months to 8 months after the pilot census before we conduct the main census. So that's why we're also conducting the main census after the elections have taken place and the outcomes are revealed. So that will be between March and April.
There will also be a security summit on Tuesday, the 19th of April, 2023, to discuss the various security threats across the country.
Where the situation is escalating is mentioned, where the situation is getting better was mentioned, and suggestions, like I've said, were proposed and solutions discussed, and that was why President wants to call for the Security Council meeting on Tuesday to discuss all the issues raised.
The prerogative of mercy is to be granted to 159 convicts after 3 names were dropped by the Council. And national honors of Order of the Niger and Order of the Federal Republic are to be conferred on 434 Nigerians by President Muhammadu Buhari for the first time since 2015.
High-tech census.
An official date for a national census has been given, and that will be between March and April of 2023. And despite the insecurity situation in the country, they say this is going to hold. Meanwhile, Nigerians still want to know the identity of these particular groups that are harassing the country. We heard during the Federal Executive Council meeting that there is an unholy handshake between bandits and terrorist organizations, and this new form of warfare is the one that Nigerians will really want to understand. From the State House in Abuja, Kayla Megwa, Channels Television News.
And to the National Assembly, where lawmakers have passed the revised MTEF and the 2022 supplementary budget, which makes provision for 4 trillion naira petrol subsidy. The total amount of the 2022 budget now comes to 3 trillion naira. The National Assembly raised the benchmark price for crude by $11 to accommodate the president's subsidy request. Apart from the subsidy provision, the chairman, House Committee on Appropriation, explains the other adjustments that were made in the budget.
It's the last plenary session before the National Assembly proceeds on a 2-week recess, and lawmakers in both chambers have before them 2 critical economic and policy documents: the revised fiscal policy framework and 2022 budget for passage. Federal lawmakers in the Senate are displeased at the level of crude oil theft, which is dealing a huge blow to the economy.
As a state, as a nation state, a sovereign state, it should not be impossible for us to stop people that are stealing our commonwealth in order to fund our country.
They also question how the country intends to finance the budget deficit.
Mr. President, when you have a deficit as high as 7-point-something trillion, with a threshold of 3.99, which is totally and absolutely above the threshold as presented by the Fiscal Responsibility Act, it means that the budget ab initio cannot be implemented.
NNPC has transited from under recovery. Now we have gone back to subsidy. And now we are moving from billion to trillion. It is so sad because this is money we should have used for developing our economy. We're using that money for pure consumption, useless consumption, and funding corruption. And this cannot be allowed.
As at the first quarter of 2022, 13 vessels have been seized by the Nigerian Navy that contain our crude oil. So know that the Nigerian government is just sitting down doing nothing. They are working around the clock. And all these vessels that were stolen, they are working on it to see how it is returned back so that the crude oil can be properly disposed of and revenue related to this adequately reported.
Despite the concerns raised by lawmakers, the Senate approves President Buhari's request for adjustments to the 2022 fiscal framework with several indices.
And I agree completely with most of the issues raised, except that of not passing it. Because we need to take immediate actions, and in fact, we are going to set up another committee on this oil theft matter because we need to address it.
The upper chamber also passes the 2022 amended budget in the sum of 17.3 trillion naira. The budget is amended to make additional provision of 3.557 trillion naira for petrol subsidy and restore cuts made by the National Assembly from key capital projects in the 2022 budget proposal. The House of Representatives also passes the revised 2022 budget. The chairman, House Committee on Appropriation, explains the amendments made in the budget.
We increased the police salary by 182 billion. That is, I think that's the only difference between the Appropriation Act and the Amendment Bill.
The National Assembly raised the benchmark price of crude by $11 to accommodate the subsidy request of President Buhari. Linda Akibi, Channels Television News.
Meanwhile, the 4 oil marketers and importers initially fingered by the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation Limited as being responsible for the recent importation of the off-spec premium motor spirit into the country have been exonerated by the House Committee on Petroleum Downstream. According to the committee, after a thorough investigation, it found that the companies Duke Oil, MRS Oil and Gas, Wando Oil and Emadeb, Energy Hyde, AY, McKiffey, Britannia U Consortium did not commit any offence. In adopting the report of the committee, the House asked the NNPC to maintain local supply and distribution of 90 million litres of PMS daily across the country until normalcy is restored. Furthermore, the House is asking the Ministers of Petroleum Resources to expedite action for completion of the rehabilitation work and ensure upgrading of the major refineries at Warri, Port Harcourt and Kaduna to reduce overdependence on imported PMS into Nigeria. The lawmakers also want the adoption of the 2017 PMS standard as approved by the Standards Organization of Nigeria, which includes testing for methanol for future importation of the product into the country. And staying with the legislature, the president has sent 2 executive bills to the National Assembly for consideration and passage. They are the Money Laundering Prohibition Bill 2022 and Terrorism Prevention Bill. According to the letter, which was read on the floor of the Green Chamber during the recent mutual evaluation carried out by the Intergovernmental Action Group Against Money Laundering, in West Africa, there were observed deficiencies in Nigeria's anti-money laundering and combating the financing of terrorism regime. The president says unless these deficiencies are addressed promptly by the National Assembly, Nigeria risks negative consequences to its rapidly growing economy.
Unless these deficiencies are addressed promptly by the National Assembly in order to bring the legal regime in conformity with Financial Action Task Force recommendations, Financial Action Task Force recommendation, Nigeria will face the risk of negative public statement, blacklisting the country by Financial Action Task Force, and this will lead to some negative consequences to our rapidly growing economy. In the light of the above, the Federal Minister of Justice reviewed the Money Laundering Prohibition Bill and Terrorism Prohibition Bill currently pending before this National Assembly and have come out with revised versions of the bills, incorporating resolutions to the deficiencies pointed out by the mutual evaluation report, thereby bringing the Nigerians anti-money and then legal actions in conformity with the Financial Action Task Force recommendations.
And to politics now, where the playing field of contestants for political positions in Delta State in 2023 has just expanded with the declaration by the Deputy President of Senate, Onne Agege, to run for the office of Governor on the platform of the All Progressives Congress, APC. Making his aspirations known at a rally in Efurunwari attended by a mammoth crowd of supporters, Senator Onne Agege says it's time for change in Delta State.
This mammoth crowd in Efurunwari, Delta State, is waiting with eager anticipation for the arrival of the Deputy President of the Senate, Senator Onne Agege, who is expected to announce his next political move. Present are senior government officials, supporters of the All Progressive Congress, and officials of the All Progressive Congress. The announcement is an open secret at this point, and one can measure the scope of approval by the words of the deputy governors of Kogi and Imo states.
Onne Agege no be small name for Nigeria. Now big name. Yaya Bello say make I tell una say 2023 who na go vote for Delta? Who na go vote for Delta? I think Delta State has a new governor. In Jesus' name, you shall hand over to God and you will be the next governor of Delta State. APC! APC!
Speaking for the youth, the national youth leader of the APC rallied support for Senator Onne Agege.
We're all here on the NWC. We come to support our own people, our own person, distinguished Senator Onne Agege, for the governorship candidate.
The moment arrives, and for those in doubt, Senator Onne Agege finally makes a declaration.
I, Senator Onne Agege, the Obarisi of Uroboland, I offer myself as a candidate for the office of Governor of Delta State in 2023.
Ahead of the upcoming governorship election in Delta State and activities leading to it, many will be looking forward to a keenly contested election with a credible outcome.
In part two, after the break, gunmen attack voter registration center in Imo State, kill one INEC staff as two others are declared missing. Plus, the president felicitates with Christians, says Easter reminds everyone of the power of divine love and redemption. Please stay with us. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. President Muhammadu Buhari presides over National Council of State meeting. Body approves conduct of national census between March and April 2023, the first in 16 years. National Assembly approves 4 trillion naira for subsidy payment in fulfillment of President's request for adjustments to the 2022 budget. All Progressives Congress governorship aspirant in Delta State, Senator Ovie Omo-Agege, declares for governorship, says he's on a mission to rescue Delta. And Ukraine says it hit Russia's Black Sea missile cruiser, causing extensive damage. Will the People's Democratic Party, PDP, choose her presidential candidate through consensus or through delegate voting? This is one of the burning issues that is on the table of the party's leadership as 17 presidential aspirants continue to lobby members for the ticket. Although the selection of a candidate through consensus is recognized by the PDP, it seems that some of the presidential aspirants would prefer that delegates decide who flies the party's presidential ticket in 2023.
The countdown to May 28 and 29, which is the proposed date for the presidential primaries of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, has begun, and aspirants seem not to be leaving anything to chance. 17 aspirants are in the race for the PDP presidential ticket, but their fate would be decided either through a consensus or voting by delegates during the party's primaries scheduled to hold on May 28 and 29 this year. And as some of the aspirants lobby members and organs of the party for their support, the agenda for a consensus candidate is also being canvassed.
My colleague who just left here, my brother, Senator Saraki, Aminu Tambuwal, and some few of us, we are gospels, we are prophets of concession on consensus. We should have to come together and close the rank.
And let me commend all of you for having gone around the whole PDP state, talking to all the governors to see the possibility of ensuring that you produce one person, just like what we did during the convention.
The selection of candidates through consensus is a known practice in the PDP. It was used during the party's convention to elect its principal officers last year. However, whether or not this method will be used in the presidential candidate selection process is a matter that some of the aspirants want the party leadership to weigh carefully.
I welcome consensus based on justice, equity, and fairness.
I'm not against consensus, but it must be based on certain given principles. And we must introduce the quality and the principles of justice, equity, and fair play. As long as justice, equity, and fair play are allowed a space, then a consensus will not be out of the place. But if you ask me, my preferred option is let's place ourselves before the people, the delegates, before the people of Nigeria. Let them make a choice. This is democracy for crying out loud.
The PDP primaries are still more than a month away. But in the meantime, aspirants continue in their lobbying for the support of party members.
Staying with politics, PDP presidential hopeful and governor of Rivers State, Onne Wike, says he has the prerequisite experience to tackle insecurity in Nigeria if given the opportunity. Mr. Wike, who said this during a consultation visit to the Oba of Benin, pointed out that the security problems are behind the economic challenges the country is facing today.
I'm making myself available
to vie for the office of the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and for you to give me your blessings. I do know, just like what Kasim said, whoever you bless goes home happy. Because I think that the way the country is sliding will require a courageous leader, require a fearless leader, require somebody who will say this is white and it is white, this is black and it is black. We can't continue to fold our arms and begin to say that the country is dying. Something must be done. And I believe by the grace of God, if the People's Democratic Party gives me the mandate to fly the flag of the party, I believe with all my experiences as chairman of local government, as Minister of State, to supervising Minister of Education, as a governor, I think I have the experiences to help this country to be better of what it is today.
The Benin monarch, in his response, expressed confidence in the ability of the PDP presidential aspirant, saying that Governor Wike has been performing well for the people of Rivers State.
Of course, we are not oblivious to constituted authority, which traditional institutions must respect. So we try our best to do that, but we are also worried that some of our traditional people go to the extent of almost like bastardizing the tradition as well. So we have to be a little bit careful and teach them to respect themselves. Like all these my chiefs, you know, when I came on board, I told them that they should better sit up. They should respect themselves, behave like true chiefs of Benin. Not to be seen in a haggard manner on the streets, and they should behave well. And I think they are trying their best, you know, because they know I'm watching as well. I'm watching. So thank you very much, Your Excellency. This journey that you have embarked on, this journey.
Away from politics, tragedy struck today in Ihite, Uboma, local government area of Imo State, where an official of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, was shot dead by gunmen who invaded the voter registration center in Amakohia ward of the local government area. In a press statement by the commission, they explained that the killed staff of the Imo State office of the commission was involved in the ongoing CVR exercise, adding that the whereabouts of the other two remaining staff involved in the exercise is still unknown. The Commission has since suspended the CVR exercise there. Prior to this incident, INEC had suspended the CVR in Osu and in Jaba local government areas, also in Imo State, on account of insecurity. Outside the country, all things maritime security and how to improve that in Africa were the center of discussions at this year's edition of the Southern African Maritime Security Conference in South Africa this week. Participants from the public and private sectors shared experiences as well as opportunities in developing the sector in line with global trends. Nigeria's Chief of Naval Staff, Vice Admiral Awal Gambo, gave the keynote speech on the efforts the Nigerian Navy has made in boosting security in the Gulf of Guinea. Our South Africa Bureau Chief, Betty Dibia, reports.
Maritime Security Conference looked at maritime security from several perspectives, from maritime crimes and what's being done about them to opportunities and possibilities for improving maritime security in Africa. Nigeria's Chief of Naval Staff, Vice Admiral Awal Gambo, accompanied by the resident High Commissioner, Ambassador Mohammed Banta, gave a keynote speech titled Learnings from Nigerian Navy's Giant Strides in Maritime Security in the Gulf of Guinea.
The Nigerian Navy needed to take practical steps to address maritime insecurity. These efforts have led to remarkable successes in the Nigerian Navy's anti-piracy efforts and the eventual delisting of Nigeria from the International Maritime Bureau piracy list. The whole of Africa approach to solving the continent's peculiar challenges is key. Furthermore, it is important that maritime legal frameworks to enhance maritime law enforcement are strengthened to forestall insecurity within the Gulf of Guinea.
Issues like establishing a Coast Guard in South Africa, international maritime trends and learning, as well as Africa as a host of a rising number of foreign military bases were also examined on the issue of what Africa can learn from global counterparts in the fight against maritime crimes. The question of whether legal finishes are ever actually achieved in the success stories often reeled out was raised.
Arrests are going on, prosecution is going on, and then we are obtaining legal finishes in Nigeria, and these are all very well displayed in the media. 2 cases were successfully prosecuted last year based on the suppression of Pirates and Other Maritime Offences Act 2019. So if you are not seeing the results like you should be seeing, maybe probably the legal arm needs to do more.
The host Navy Chief, Vice Admiral Samuel Hlongwane, told Channels Television that the Nigerian and South African navies share quite a lot and intend to deepen relations even further.
Of course, we've been having a student exchange, especially at the senior level. But I know at a certain stage also they were sending their COQ1 students in Maritime Warfare School here in South Africa. We're also doing the same thing in exchanging the students.
Nigeria's Chief of Naval Staff, who has been in the country on the invitation of his South African counterpart, has also visited several naval and maritime infrastructure institutions in Cape Town. The delegation returns to Nigeria on Friday. From Simonstown, Western Cape, South Africa, Betty Dibia, Channels Television News.
Let's touch base in Abuja right now, where Linda Kigwe is standing by with more. Hello, Linda.
Hello, Millicent. Now, staying with security issues, but back here in Nigeria, family members of those kidnapped in the attack on the Kaduna-bound train on March 28th are appealing to the federal government to urgently save their loved ones from the hands of the kidnappers. They're also accusing the government of failing to reach out to them, even when they had made all attempts to seek help from the authorities. They stated these positions when they paid a visit to the National Human Rights Commission, Abuja, to seek a solution to the situation.
The cries of agony and heart-wrenching pain is palpable in this conference room at the National Human Rights Commission. Family members of the kidnapped travelers of the ill-fated AK-9 Abuja train shed uncontrollable tears. In an emotion-laden voice, they lament the agony the victims are going through in the hands of the bandits. They want government to rescue their loved ones.
There is a 7-month-old woman and 2 weeks now who only gives birth through cesarean section. Only God knows the trauma she's going through. We have other people that are sick, that require daily medication. They don't have access. There's a toddler who is 2 years old, for God's sake. We can only imagine what they're going through.
We can only plead, we can only beg the government, please, they should come to the aid of these people. Look at the pregnant woman, 7 pregnant now, 2 weeks, it's like almost getting to 8 weeks, and she's already been given an appointment for cesarean section. Is she going to be there at that period? Please come to the rescue of our family members. Come to the rescue of your citizens. Come to the rescue of your children, of your son, of your wives. Please, Mr. President, do something.
The representative of the Executive Secretary, Human Rights Commission, assures them of a quick response.
The Commission is actually monitoring the event closely in the media and also making contacts with the relevant authority. We will definitely collect the plea and also ensure that it is transmitted to the relevant authority. And we'll work closely with the relevant authority to ensure that the right thing is done.
The agony is written all over their faces as they continue to pray for the best for their loved ones.
The federal government has commenced the distribution of food commodities to the vulnerable in the Federal Capital Territory. Speaking during the flag-off ceremony in Abuja, the Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development, Mr. Mohammed Abubakar, explains that the intervention comes on the heels of incessant attacks on communities by bandits, thereby disrupting the means of livelihood for many.
The Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development arrives at the internally displaced persons camp in Karmajiji to provide relief materials to persons who have been displaced from their communities as a result of insecurity.
God Almighty.
The intervention is part of the federal government's provision of 40,000 metric tons of food from the Strategic Grain Reserve to cushion the effects of food scarcity on vulnerable Nigerians.
This administration is very concerned about what is happening around the country. We know there are issues of insecurity. Some of this has led to displacement of people. That is why the president, again, as I've mentioned earlier, has summoned me and ordered, directed, that we go around the country and do this.
The food items distributed comprise bags of rice, beans and maize. An excited traditional ruler in the community narrates how it's been difficult fending for the internally displaced persons taking refuge in the community.
We thank you, Honorable Minister, for this, our support to these displaced people. They are here with us here, and we have been managing with them, and we have come here to at least sympathize with them as we are here. Seeing them, I will know soon they will soon be back to their various destinations. I'm praying that as we came to this event, everybody will go back successful.
The entourage moves to the Ministry of Women Affairs, where hundreds of women are on hand to partake in the gesture. The Women Affairs Minister speaks on how the intervention will bring hope to the vulnerable.
Since the beginning of Lent and Ramadan, I cried to Mr. President that women are going through difficult times. There's hunger in the land, and there's need for women to be supported with some palliatives. Being a true father, he did not hesitate.
The food distribution in the Federal Capital Territory is the pilot phase of the government's intervention to the poor and vulnerable. Other states are expected to benefit from the gesture in the weeks ahead.
Ahead of the Easter celebrations, the president is reminding Nigerians of the need to emphasize love for one another rather than hate. In his statement to felicitate with Christians on the event, President Buhari enjoins Nigerians to live out the eternal words of Jesus Christ on the cross, centered on forgiveness. He notes that this year's celebration is very unique for adherents of the two great faiths in Nigeria, Christianity and Islam, as it ends the 40-day season of Lent for Christians, just as Muslim faithful are about halfway into the holy month of Ramadan. In the words of the president, Easter also evokes in us the resilience of the human spirit, not to give up in the face of seemingly daunting challenges of life. According to him, this period encourages all to believe that the current spate of uncertainty and insecurity will soon give way to triumph over evil, despair, and darkness. While wishing all Nigerians a joyful and blessed Easter, the president enjoined all to let the security and unity of a nation guide their actions and utterances as the nation approaches another season of electioneering. In the same spirit of Easter, the president of the Christian Association of Nigeria, Reverend Samson Ayokunle, is asking Nigerians not to allow what he calls the gloomy situation of the country mar their celebration. In his Easter message, Reverend Ayokunle declares that Nigeria will rise from all the current challenges she's facing and citizens will rejoice and be proud of the country again. He prays God to fast-track the resurrection of Nigeria from all her pains and challenges so that those who have tasted in the suffering might equally eat of the good of this nation. While commending security agencies for all they are doing to nip the ugly situation of insecurity in the bud, the CAN leader asked the federal government to work harder to bring reprieve to Nigerians from all the challenges soon. Away from Easter messages, the Minister of Women Affairs, Mrs. Pauline Tallen, says the president has indicated his readiness to implement the court judgment that upheld the 35% affirmative action in appointive positions for women in Nigeria. Mrs. Tallen made this disclosure while speaking at a conference in Abuja. She also gave the assurance that her ministry will ensure full implementation of the policy. And that's all from Abuja. Back to you, Millicent.
Thank you, Linda. The chairman of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA, Brigadier General Buba Marwa, is appealing for more support from the FCT minister in the fight against drug abuse. Speaking during a courtesy visit by the FCT minister, General Marwa says over 3,000 arrests have been made in the first quarter of this year alone and promises to fight on.
First quarter of this year so far, we have arrested 3,359 suspects. We have sent to jail 677. We have destroyed 260 hectares of cannabis farms, mostly in the south. But now it has started here also in Kaduna, Kano, Taraba. They are beginning to enter into this farming. We've also seized over 66 tons of illicit substances this year. They request the Honorable Minister of FCT to establish a committee, it can be called the FCT Drug Control Committee, which we would recommend because of the intensity of the issues before us on drugs, for the Honorable Minister himself to chair it or his designated representative with the NDLEA as secretary.
The West African container terminal company Wike has berthed the second largest container ship at the Onne oil and gas free zone in River State. The managing director of Wike says the development further reinforces the company's drive to expand access to maritime commercial activities to the eastern part of the country.
This is Lady Jane, the second largest container ship in eastern Nigerian port with length overall of 295 meters and beam of 32.3 meters with a capacity to carry over 5,000 20-foot equivalent unit containers berthed here at the oil and gas free zone in Onne River State. The berthing of this magnificent vessel is on account of a major investment by the West African Container Terminal Company, Wike, and is expected to upscale shipping business in the country.
This vessel is around 295 meter LOA, and the capacity is around 5,000 TEU. We are excited to have it. We're looking forward to having much more beyond this point. Again, this is not the longest we've had. 2 years ago, we had a 300-meter vessel visit us here in Onne.
As the ship have arrived, they will mobilize and go into discharging of cargo. And considering the volume it is carrying, it is going to increase the turnover of activities here in the port.
According to the managing director of Wike, the arrival of Lady Jane vessel aligns with the aspiration of the company to increase access to the region.
We embarked on a significant investment of almost $110 million since last year, so a lot of actions have been taken in that connection with the brand new equipment coming in the form of our rubber tie cranes. We are also expanding our terminal. So this big ship coming over here is a manifestation of all the efforts that we have been making over the last few years.
The Onne port manager notes that the development is very significant to the region's economic outlook.
It's indicative too that container traffic is beginning to take hold in Onne, and it's also showing that it's a port of choice now for container traffic, which also dovetails into my management's ambition and effort to see that the seaports of the East are patronized.
The West African Container Terminal in Onne, River State, started off as the first greenfield terminal operator in Nigeria with a vision to make the company the best performing terminal in West Africa, providing safe, reliable and cost-effective services to our customers.
It's time for business news now. Here's Teniola Shobowale.
Thanks a lot, Millicent. Welcome to Business News. President Muhammadu Buhari has picked Herman Madu as the new Managing Director of the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria. The appointment, which takes effect from April the 13th, follows the President's approval for the reconstitution of the FMBN's Board of Directors, with the aim of repositioning the bank as a core banking institution with core competence in mortgage finance. Earlier this year, President Buhari had appointed a chartered accountant and a financial expert, Mr. Ayodeji Bele, as chairman of the board. And the governor of the central bank, Godwin Emefiele, has directed the immediate release of 3.5 billion naira as rebates to 150 exporters that participated in the newly introduced race to $200 billion or RT200 FX program. The managing director of Fidelity Bank made this known at a virtual press briefing as one of the outcomes of the Bankers Committee meeting today.
The first one you asked, the press gentleman asked was how much FX has come into the country since the new policy. And the figure that I have is $60 million, according to the figures coming out of the central bank. Then another press person asked for how many exporters are benefiting from the 3.5 billion the central bank is going to distribute today. There are 150 customers at various levels, and some under the finished goods, some under the semi-finished goods. Those that qualify for the rebates. And then they also asked when is this going to be, how much has been paid up to today. The money was only released today for this quarter. It's going to be paid quarterly. And this 3.5 billion is going to be released today by the close of business to the 150 customers that I mentioned earlier on. And somebody else also asked about how many ports have been opened and the incentives going to the state government. I'm just looking at the only state government that has completed its own port is just Plateau State. All the other state governments are different levels of engagement. This policy is only 1 month old, remember, and getting to process export zone is not very easy. So we expect that will take a little more time, but that option is available to the state governments as an incentive for them to set up export processing zones and terminals.
Nigerian Exchange Limited, the NGX, is set to launch West Africa's first exchange-traded derivatives market with equity index futures contract. Today's launch of the NGX ETD market saw the listing of 2 equity index futures contracts, NGX 30 index futures and NGX pension index futures, with more securities to be added in the future for efficient operations. The exchange has collaborated with NG Clearing Limited to provide the clearing infrastructure for NGX derivatives market and its clearing members. And as financial markets close for the Easter break, Nigeria's stock market ends the second week of April positive for a fourth consecutive day, gaining more than 473 billion naira within 4 trading sessions. John Mekwa tells us more.
Thank you so much. Welcome to the Stock Market Report. That's right, that bull drive is still on at Nigeria's equities market. 5 positive trading sessions and counting. So just like yesterday, the all-share index gained 0.3%. That's 77 billion naira added to the market value. Let's look at the activity charts now. It's mixed today. Deals, which was down yesterday, is back up at 6,000 today. That's about 600 more than the deals we had yesterday. Value was really impressive yesterday. Remember, it was heading to ₦1 trillion naira, but today it's gone down to about 4 billion naira. Well, looking at the top trade, banking stocks still dominate the top trade, and the list is led by 2 Tier 2 lenders. Both Fidelity and Sterling banks account for over 110 million of today's traded volume, but that counter closed negative by over 0.5%. Profit taking may have returned to that counter, but it's not yet affecting the industrial goods, as we see that it gained more than 1%. Dangote Cement added 6 naira 50 kobo. That's the magic one for that counter. Dangote Cement closed at 280 kobo. Well, today is a final trading day for this week. As we see, there's Easter tomorrow. So it's been a bullish week. It's been a good one. And we do hope that profit taking will not change that sentiment anytime soon. That's the stock market report. I'm John Mekwa.
And that's Business News tonight. It's back to Millicent for the rest of the news at 10.
Thank you, Taniola. A Russian warship that was damaged by an explosion has sunk. According to the country's defense ministry, Moskva, the flagship of Russia's Black Sea fleet, was being towed to port when stormy seas caused it to sink. Ukraine claims it struck the warship with its missiles, but Russia has made no mention of an attack. Here's Sam Pusey with more on this and other international news and around the world in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Russian state media say their flagship Black Sea missile cruiser has been seriously damaged and its crew forced to evacuate. Ammunition on board the Moskva, seen here before the incident, exploded after a fire, according to Moscow's defense ministry, although they didn't state the cause. However, this spokesman for the Ukrainian military claims it struck the vessel with 2 of its Neptune missiles. The 510 crew warship, here seen in a satellite image from a port in Crimea, has led Russia's naval assault on Ukraine, making it an important symbolic and military target. The death toll in the South African province of KwaZulu-Natal has reached more than 300 after devastating floods wreaked havoc in the area. A state of disaster has been declared in the area after some places saw months' worth of rain fall in one day. Officials have called it one of the worst weather storms in the history of the country. Mudslides have trapped people under buildings with more floods expected. President Cyril Ramaphosa, visiting the affected region, pledged to help the victims of the East Coast floods. Police video has been released of a white officer fatally shooting a black man in the back of the head after a scuffle over a stun gun.
Hey, stay in the car! Stay in the car!
Footage of the 4th of April incident in Grand Rapids, Michigan, shows Patrick Leola running from the officer following a traffic stop. The officer is then heard to be telling Mr. Leola to let go of his taser before the man is shot as he lies face down on the ground. The shooting has led to protests, with dozens of demonstrators gathering to demand the name of the police officer involved be made public. State police are currently investigating the incident. 5 Palestinians have been killed in the past 24 hours alone amid operations by Israel to crack down on militants after a spate of deadly attacks on Israelis. Palestinians say 2 youths were killed in the northern occupied West Bank on Thursday during an Israeli raid. Israeli forces stepped up operations after a Palestinian killed 2 Israelis at a bar in Tel Aviv last week. The UK government has unveiled plans to send some asylum seekers to Rwanda. The Home Secretary, Priti Patel, was in Kigali today to sign the partnership agreement before presenting it to a joint news conference with the Rwandan Foreign Minister.
To put an end to this deadly trade in people smuggling.
Refugee organisations have criticised the plan as cruel, but Prime Minister Boris Johnson said the £120 million scheme would save countless lives from human trafficking.
So from today, our new migration and economic development partnership will mean that anyone entering the UK illegally, as well as those who have arrived illegally since January the 1st, may now be relocated to Rwanda. This innovative approach, driven by our shared humanitarian impulse and made possible by Brexit freedoms, will provide safe and legal routes for asylum while disrupting the business model of the gangs.
Pope Francis has started 4 packed days of Easter events celebrating the Mass of the Chrism. The solemn service, celebrated in St. Peter's Basilica, is one of 2 solemn events on Holy Thursday, when Christians commemorate the founding of the priesthood by Jesus. Meanwhile, Britain's Prince Charles and his wife Camilla represented the royal family at the annual Maundy service, where Queen Elizabeth usually distributes coins to pensioners. The Queen, who turns 96 this month, has been suffering from problems with her mobility and will also not attend an Easter Sunday service at Windsor. And the billionaire Elon Musk has offered to buy Twitter for $41.39 billion. That's according to a regulatory filing.
We think with the resources here that we can build
The Tesla CEO's offer price of $54.2 per share was 38% higher than the closing price of Twitter's stock on the 1st of April, the last trading day before his investment of over 9% in the company was publicly announced.
Everyone.
It comes just days after he rejected a seat on the social media company's board. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to Channel Studios in Lagos.
Thank you, Simon, and welcome to Sports News. We begin in the UEFA Europa League, where Christopher Nkunku scored both goals as RB Leipzig defeated Atalanta 2-0 to qualify for the semi-finals 3-1 in aggregate. Eintracht Frankfurt produced one of the best nights of football in their history to shock Barcelona 3-2 at the Camp Nou and progress to the semi-finals 4-3 in aggregate. West Ham United reached their first European semi-final since 1976 with a clinical 3-0 brushing of Olympique Lyonnais. Rangers reached the last 4 after a convincing 3-1 win over Sporting Braga after extra time. The Nigerian Football Federation has approved the recommendation of the Technical and Development Subcommittee for the appointment of Salisu Yusuf as the head coach of the Super Eagles B as well as the Under-23 team. In other appointments, Ladan Boso retains his position as head coach of the Flying Eagles, while Nduka Ogbade will take charge of the Golden Eaglets. The Under-13 and Under-15 boys, known as the Future Eagles, will be tutored by Patrick Bassi. Now, UK-based coach Ebobo Ritse Uwejamomere will serve as match analyst, while former Super Eagles goalkeeper Ike Shirumu as goalkeeper's trainer. The NFF also announced that Yusuf, former Super Eagles forward Finidi George, and Usman Abdullah will serve as assistants to the new head coach of the Super Eagles, who will be announced at a later date ahead of the qualifiers for the 2023 Africa Cup of Nations qualifier. Now, Scotland's delayed 2022 FIFA World Cup qualification playoff semi-final against Ukraine has been rearranged for June the 1st, and the winner will face Wales on June the 5th. The fixture was scheduled to take place at Hampden Park on March the 24th, but was postponed owing to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The Scotland versus Ukraine fixture will take place at Hampden Park, while the Wales World Cup playoff final will be held at the Cardiff City Stadium. As a result of the new arrangements for the World Cup playoffs, Scotland and Ukraine's Nations League group matches have been altered. The Manchester United have appointed the architects behind the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium to draw up plans for a redevelopment of their aging Old Trafford ground. Architects, Populous and management consultants Legends International will work jointly on plans to update Britain's biggest club stadium with the aim of increasing capacity further. Both companies worked on the development of Tottenham's 63,000-seater stadium, which opened in 2019. Manchester United are also seeking to improve their training facilities with architecture and design firm KISS appointed to draw up plans for an expanded state-of-the-art facility. And that's it on Sports News. Thank you for watching. I'm Victor Mathias. Back to Millicent with the wrap-up in the 10.
Thank you, Victor. And the main news again. President Muhammadu Buhari today presided over the National Council State meeting, where the body approved the conduct of national census between March and April 2023, the first in 16 years. That's news at 10 to 9. Thank you for watching. I'm Millicent Nwaka. Have a good night and stay safe.